All right, it's been a hot minute since I've put out any content, and I need to feed the beast a little bit. Don't worry, we've got a lot of reviews coming up. I'm really excited to talk about some of the new music that has been dropped within the past handful of weeks. I got a lot to get through, but before we dive into any of those, I wanted to go through my new kind of record grabbed. As per my last record haul, I had a no-buy. I went into the whole, spring with, I've bought a lot of records lately. Working at the record store has been really tough to not buy any records, and I need to stop. And that's what my plan was. And then I failed horribly, or I failed spectacularly, depending on what you want to class it as. But yeah, I failed really well, as you're going to see very, very soon. This might be one of the biggest record hauls I've ever had, and it's only been, 3 months? So, yeah, it's real bad. It's real bad. I need to really take stock and really pump the brakes and maybe not buy any records for a little bit, but we'll see. I have now learned that working in a record store is very good for my mental health, very bad for my wallet, as a lot of these were not necessarily impulse buys, but, because I'm at the record store quite a bit, I'm like, ooh, that's a good price. Ooh, that's a good record. And this is where we find ourselves with a lot of records here that I don't know how I'm going to fit into my collection. So I've got a little bit of an organizational scheme here, but this is very much hodgepodge, very much all over the place. So I feel like this one's just going to be like a really cool, chill, very light kind of a video. So pull up a beverage, pull up a chair. This is going to be a very chill time. And before I get into the records, I want to talk about some of the cassette tapes that I recently picked up, because I'm getting back into cassette tapes. So here's like the handful of tapes that I've got. Most of these are new, and I'm going to talk a little bit in depth of 2 of these tapes in a later video. So get excited about that. But yeah, the first one I got was Forever How Long from Black Country New Road. And when I ordered it specifically from their Bandcamp. It came in a paper sleeve, and it's really hard to get that boy out of here, so yeah, it's just kind of a paper sleeve. It's very, very tight in there, which kind of makes sense. You don't want it just flying out, but I thought that was really interesting. It's got an orange cassette on there. Similarly, another new release, I got Ghost's new record, Skeleta. So the actual tape, transparent here, is purple, and the tape itself is a bone white, which I thought was really interesting. I haven't had a chance to listen to this, but if it, their last record that I also have on cassette tape sounds like garbage. I don't know what they did in order to, transfer the file from digital to magnetic strip. But yeah, it sounded like garbage. So I'm kind of hoping that this one sounds a little bit better. Then, of course, I also picked up Evermore from Taylor Swift, one of my favorites from her. And I feel like of all of her albums, this is the one that lends itself very well to cassette tape and how it's played. So, yeah, I'm excited to dive into that one. So these are the 2 that I'm going to talk at length about later on. It's Prog on tapes. We've got Cole from Leprous and Visions from Haken, both of which sound phenomenal. I was a little concerned when I actually cracked these boys open, because like the actual tape itself, I don't know, it feels flimsy. It feels not as, I don't know, there's just a part of me that's just like, I like the gimmick of it a little bit, but it doesn't feel as tangible. There's Cole. And I was kind of worried, I was worried that the music would feel kind of a little bit on the weaker side, but honestly, they sound incredible on cassette tape. And then finally, and this is what's going to launch me into the actual records themselves, I finally picked up a replacement copy for my Metallica Black album. I had this when I was a kid. This was my introduction to metal music. My dad had this tape, and he had Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. I now have both of those on cassette tapes. Those were the only 2 tapes that he had in his truck at the time. And so this is what I grew up with, So I picked this up actually at a record show this past weekend. And I picked up that, and I picked up 2 records. So let's dive into the actual record collection and the record grabbing. I only picked up 2, as I mentioned. Only 2 records from that record store, or I guess the record show. There was a number of stores that kind of came in, very local, very small. I also feel as if a lot of these like record stores don't have any brick and mortar. You know, most of them are just like these guys that just go to these shows to show off and to sell their records. So the first one is the live harmonium record. This is their only record that I didn't have. So I'm glad that I have this. This completes my collection for harmonium. And it's basically just their last record done live. So because I got it yesterday, I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and listen to it. So I can't tell you exactly how well this one works or how well it sounds. But I mean, it's basically, as I mentioned, just their last record, the double album that they put out. And it's live. So I'm excited to dive in and give that one a listen to. The other record that I got from the record show was Griffin, their first record. Love the Griffin cover on here. I think that looks fantastic. I think the only one I'm missing is their third record that I want. That's kind of where I'm going to stop. Obviously, their second record of Red Queen to Griffin 3 is their masterpiece, but glad I was able to find this one. So yeah, this is just their self-titled, I believe it's their debut. But I could be wrong. You know, I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, and they'll say, how dare you, blah, 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 blah. Apparently this was also the UK pressing, which is interesting. So there we go. My wife, who followed me into the record store or record show, also picked up one. We picked up a Samantha Fish record. So this is Death Wish Blues from Samantha Fish and Jesse Dayton. Both her and I are falling in love with Samantha Fish. I found her out at the record store, and yeah, we haven't cracked the seal on this one. So again, we don't know quite what it sounds like, but it was like $20. So she was like, you know what? I'll buy something here as well. So we picked up that one. And speaking of Samantha Fish, because we were kind of introduced to her, I picked up 2 of her records. So this is her latest one. This is Paper Dolls. And for anybody that hasn't heard Samantha Fish, it's kind of like a rock blues, kind of a intermix, you know, a little bit of, I'm just going to move over just a hair more. And yeah, this album is fantastic. I know I'm going to be reviewing it. The one track of Sweet Southern Sounds just stand out. Just an absolute banger. Absolutely love that song. It's one of my favorite songs of this year. And then I also picked up her Kill or Be Kind record, which I've been listening to a lot on Spotify and on the streaming sites, and figured I might as well pick that one up because of how much I've been listening to it. So yeah, picked up 2 of her records because she is just a standout artist, and I've been loving her kind of that bluesy guitar work that I feel kind of got lost in the shuffle in a lot of rock stuff, even though blues is a foundational pillar of, you know, early rock music. Okay, let's talk about some of the pre-orders that finally came in. These are re-releases of classic records. The first one, I'm just going to stick to Neal Morse. So I was able to pick up his Question Mark, the kind of the one-track album. I always call these like playthrough records, where it's basically one track, but it's subdivided into different sequences. And to be perfectly honest, the Question Mark was one of the few that I hadn't dived really deep into within his discography, and I found that I absolutely loved it. I mean, it's got the boys on here. Randy George and Mike Portnoy, I believe, are both on here. And I believe, yeah, Steve Hackett makes an appearance on here as well as Jordan Rudess, Roland Stolt, Alan Morse, wrong Alan. So I picked up Question Mark that joins one, as well as Testimony. I believe the only one that I'm missing now that I might want is Lifeline, because I also picked up probably amongst one of his big masterpieces, Sola Scriptura. Yeah, this one's kind of the pinnacle. This one's the top of the mountain. This is one of the, top 5 records from Neal Morse of all time. If you haven't listened to it already, I mean, you gotta if you're a big prog fan. The only thing, though, is that the wear and tear on this guy, I'm going to move that closer to the camera, it's quite substantial. Now, I picked this up brand new, and I think it was just kind of how it was delivered that I'm not too much of a fan of. It's kind of dinted, and it's definitely not to the quality that I usually like with my records, but still, the music that's found on here is an absolute masterpiece. And yeah, as I said, I think the only other Neal Morse record that I would want that he's been, he'll probably re-release is Lifeline. After that, I'm not a big fan of some of his other releases like Momentum and Sola Gratia and, all those other ones. I think that pretty much completes my Neal Morse collection. Okay, let's talk about some new releases. These are releases that, very hot off the presses. One that I absolutely had to have was Jupiter Fungus with their album Of Garden Electric. This was one of my favorite records of last year. Really amazing progressive prog stuff on here. Very deep prog. I'll just open this gatefold up, show you the lyrics. Yeah, and even the gatefold back here. Like, what an outstanding record. An absolute treat. If you like this kind of, really sophisticated, eclectic retro prog, you're going to love this one. So I highly recommend checking out Jupiter Fungus. One of my favorite bands, and I believe they're from Greece. Just an absolute treat. So you got to check this one out if you haven't already. Okay, one that I can't necessarily say that for. We got Pink Elephant from Arcade Fire. The only reason why I picked this up, to be perfectly honest, is just to complete my Arcade Fire collection. There was no real other reason. I have a review coming up for this one very, very soon. The only thing I'll say right now is we probably have a winner for the most disappointing record of this quarter, and I'm going to leave it at that. Literally the only reason why I picked this up is to complete and maintain my Arcade Fire vinyl collection, because I have all their other albums, but yeah. Another one that the more I'm listening to it, I feel as if I've gotten all the juice out of it. Spelling with their album of Portrait of My Heart. I honestly haven't spun this one as much as I thought I was going to. It's a really good effort from her. I love that she's kind of genre bending and blending to the extent that she is, but I was just kind of hoping for a little bit more stay power of this record as her last record of the Turning Wheel did. But this one's still fine. This one I still had a good time with. As I mentioned, I just hoped and wished for just a little bit more. And then I think because of that, I haven't been spinning it quite as much as I was hoping I would be. The same cannot be said about this next one here of Deaf Heaven and their latest album. What is it called? Lonely People with Power. Like, this record here, what an absolute treat. They are back. They are as heavy as all get out. Here, I'll even show you the actual record itself, because the record is that nice little transparent blue. What an absolute treat. Love that. I also love just the liner notes here. I love when bands are able to do just that little extra accent. It makes the whole experience just that much better. There we go. And then instead of blue, I believe this one is... Oh, it's also blue. It's also blue. There we go. What a fantastic record. One of my favorite metal records of this year. Speaking of a metal record, let's talk about Tiktaalica. Charlie Griffith is back with his Tiktaalica. This is Gods of Pangea. Basically just a throwback right to 80s thrash metal, 80s power metal. And the thing that I absolutely adore about this one, and want to give Charlie and the band all the praise, is that all the music fits on a single album. And that single album, one of my favorite colors, look at that, a nice magenta, probably my favorite color, outside of just regular old blue, but like when I was a kid, there was something about that color that just really spoke to me. So yeah, not as good as his first record, not as good as the debut, but what a solid record, really channeling that 80s style of metal. All right, another new one. I had to finally pick up the overview from Steven Wilson. I made a whole video about this, so I'm not going to go too deep in that. Just going to show it off a little bit. It sounds incredible on vinyl. I think this is the definitive way of listening to the record. I wonder, is the record itself just a black? Yeah, it's just black. Yeah, just what a fantastic work. You know, Steven Wilson's is back on his A game with this one. Not his best, you know, I think that's still with The Raven and Hand Cannot Erase, but I think that he's kind of going back into what he does best, you know, because the last handful of records from him saw him not doing his best. One of the last new releases, I actually have quite a few more, so I'm not even going to say that. We got Pompeii, and a lot of people have said that right there is the Roman numerals. There we go. For 1972, that's when this guy was released. And it sounds incredible. Like, the actual deep cuts of this record, both within the movie and the soundtrack itself, what a fantastic record. And these records are heavy, you know, like this is the full 180 gram really used at its full extent, and like holding this it's hefty. Love this. Definitely the definitive way to listen to Live at Pompeii. And these tracks are just so good. So good. Okay, next up, this is an interesting one. So this is just a brown kind of paper bag thing. And you're probably wondering to yourself, what is this record? Well, when you open it up, you just get this cardstock. And for some of you, you'll know exactly what this is right away. But the cardstock itself, I don't know how I'm going to show this. It's like risen, you know, there's indents on it. So it's almost like a topography map. It's like legit, like, yeah, risen. I don't know any other way. And it's just basically just a cardstock. And that's it. You know, you got this, and then you'll open it up and out pops the records. So for those of you not in the know, this is the Mars Volta with their latest release. So each side of the record comes in these little things here. Yeah. Not, you know, the more I listen to this, the more it's fine. It's good, but not their best work, obviously. I think that is kind of well behind them at this point. But, you know, I was really hoping that it would connect with me a little bit more than it did. But it's just fine. You know, it kind of follows in the same vein as their last work did. And the more I listen to it, the more, you know, I kind of groove to it. It's a vibe. It's a definite vibe. And if you're here for the vibe, you're going to really enjoy it. But if you're not here for the vibe, you might not be as excited about it. Okay, coming up to, I think, the last 2 or 3 of the new releases. I finally picked up the new Ghost record on record, you know, the new Ghost album. This is Skeleta, and what I liked about this was that this is the indie store release. So, with the indie store, there it is. It comes with this little transparent of the new Papa. I don't know how well that's going to show up on, there we go. So really, you're supposed to put him on the back here, and it looks like he's sitting on the throne, you know, which is really, really interesting and really cool. So it's got that little bit about him. So it's like, I'm sitting on the thing. And because it's transparent, you know, you can, it's almost like one of those animation cells, you know. So I don't want to touch it too much just because of all my greasy hands. But the other thing that I love about this edition of it is it comes with that really light magenta, you know, that really light purple, which absolutely love about this. So yeah, the actual album artwork is just fantastic. It's got a little bit of that shine on it. When I was a kid, I used to call that like holographics, you know, when I was collecting like Pokemon cards and Magic cards, and instead of foils, I would always say like holographic, even though that's not what this is at all. But it's just fun. You know, it's got a little bit of a shine to it. So there we go. Okay, one of the last ones of the brand new releases, we got Forever Howling on record on LP. It's kind of got like a little bit of a matte finish on there as well. The more I listen to it, the more I enjoy it, but not as much as their other 3 records, because I do include the live record that they do as one of their obvious records. Yeah, it's just black. So yeah, it's fun, it's fine, but again, much like the Arcade Fire record, I only really picked it up to complete my set. I probably won't be diving into this as much as I have their past records. Okay, getting into some of the re-releases or some of the albums that I picked up to kind of fill out my collection. First up is Ethel Cain with her record, The Preacher's Daughter. Absolutely love this, and hearing it on record is the best and kind of definitive way to listen to this record. Her voice on here, her artistic style is just brilliant and beautiful. So when I saw she was finally releasing this record on vinyl, I had to pick it up. Absolutely had to pick it up, and it is wonderful. If you haven't listened to it, it's very experimental, kind of pop rock, very in the vein of like a Kate Bush, kind of a very artistic statement. And it's just fantastic. It's ethereal, it's out of this world. Another kind of brand new release that I picked up that really surprised me is Forever is a Feeling by Lucy Dacus, and I hope I pronounced her last name correctly. What a fantastic record. It's very indie pop, indie rock in that vein, very singer-songwriter, but her voice is transcendent, her writing style and her poetry is so moving and so personal. And after listening to this, I then immediately went out and picked up finally Boy Genius's record of the album, because she is 1/3 of this trio. It's funny because I've heard of Boy Genius. It's kind of hard not to hear about Boy Genius, but I always thought it was like a rapper, like a guy rapper in the same vein as like Eminem or Mac Miller or, somewhere around those veins. Turns out it's 3 amazing lesbians. What a fantastic record. And I've been loving it. It's really much my jam. Very much my jam. And in that same vein, another one that came in to fill in, we got Banks with Off With Her Head, another pop record that came out this year that really, really surprised me. A lot more electronical. It has a lot more of a rhythm and flow to it that I really appreciate. And I love how Banks really likes experimenting with sound. I feel like that's one of the things that prog music really could learn from, especially the more, recent prog outfits. I feel like there's more of an emphasis to showcase musical prowess rather than showing fearless experimentation more within the actual production side of things. So Banks was doing that wonderfully on her record Off With Her Head. And I've been really, really enjoying it. Another one that I picked up, and this was because I backed the Kickstarter, is Siren from Mariana Senkima. And Mariana was so gracious by sending me a second copy because my first copy was damaged beyond repair in the shipment. And I do not blame Mariana in the slightest about that. I blame our not so great, packaging and postal service, especially internationally, because it literally felt like somebody shot it, because there was a hole almost right here that hit the vinyl, and the vinyl itself was warped to a point that I couldn't play it. So Mariana was so gracious in sending me a second copy, even though I know these boys are kind of hard to fill. They're not cheap, especially this, because not only, again, it's kind of got this gold speckled thing going on. That's really, really cool. But the record itself, yeah, it's signed by her. Got a little signature there. And this whole record itself is an absolute vibe. Very woodsy, very ethereal. And here's that gold splatter. Also very transparent, right? But it's got this gold speckle splatter on it that just makes this album pop. Yeah, this is one of the few records that I'm actually keeping in its in its sleeve, because I very rarely actually keep records in their sleeves, but this one I want to protect a little bit, especially after what happened to the first round I got. All right, let's talk about some record store day hauls. This includes past record day hauls, and the first one is a past one. This is Steven Wilson's Harmonic Divergence, the Harmony Codex remixed and reimagined. It's fine. It's fine. I mainly picked this one up because there's a Harmony Codex version that's got a Mogwai remix, and I love Mogwai, even though their last album was not great. It was kind of bad. But I really, really love what this is doing, and I wish that Steven would do a little bit more of this. You know, it's allowing other creators to go in, tinker with the tracks a little bit, put their own spin on it, because so much of the Harmony Codex really allows for that. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. And I never picked it up because it never came to a store over this side of the pond for me. So now that it was Record Store Day again, I figured I'll treat myself. Another one that I got from Record Store Day, I only really picked up 2, if I'm being perfectly honest. The first one is The Secret of Us from the Radio City Music Hall from Gracie Abrams. I really like The Secret of Us, the album that this live record comes from. And it was just a lot of fun, just a lot of fun. So I had to pick this one up. This was one of 2. The other one, it was also a live record. I got the Ready, Set, Go from David Bowie. I'm only now starting to get a little bit more into David Bowie. Shout out and thank you to Brent over at Similitude of Prague, who's really helping me get into David Bowie. So yeah, I believe this is just him practicing for his, 2003 live Riverside studio. Or he's just playing through a handful of his tracks. So, yeah, great track there. And because I was doing a little bit of Bowie and I wanted to get more live stuff, I got his live Santa Monica from 72 there. I finally picked this boy up. It's got a lot of the stuff that I really enjoy from David Bowie. Love this one. Lots of fun. And I always love hearing David Bowie perform live. I think he's what a phenomenal artist and performer when he's doing his live stuff. All right, so these last handful of records are the ones that I've been picking up to help fill out the record collection that I have, filling in gaps, picking up albums that I have been needing and wanting for a while. The first one up, I got Elton John's Diamonds. This is his kind of best of, and I know I'm one of the weird ones in that I find for Elton John, outside of maybe Captain Fantastic and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, I'm not a fan of his albums. I like more of his live or his compilation, because you kind of have to get through a number of his clunkers before you get to those diamonds, and that's where this whole diamond in the rough stuff is. The only drawback to this, because it has all of my favorite songs from him, except Philadelphia Freedom. And I'm really sad that we don't have that one last, Philadelphia Freedom on here. But all the other tracks on here are just the bangers. It's all bangers from his discography. So, yeah, and this is how I like to listen to Elton John, is just through his best ofs. All right, another one to kind of fill out and to kind of, complete my collection. I've got Presence from Led Zeppelin. I'm only missing Coda and In Through the Outdoor. Those are the last 2 that I want to pick up from them. And honestly, I feel like Presence is a underrated gem from Led Zeppelin. I know it doesn't get quite the same love that Physical Graffiti or Houses of the Holy does, even though those are 2 of my favorite records from them. And I would probably say this is one of their weaker records. I feel like the last 3 records, starting with this record, kind of showcases there's not quite as many of the big bangers that we got from way back when. But it still has Achilles' Last Stand, which is one of my favorites from the whole group. Anyway, Led Zeppelin Presence. What a great record. All right, the next 2 are from Black Sabbath, as I've been trying to collect their whole discography, or not their whole discography, that would be insane, but at least the Ozzy years, so their first 8. I have their first 4. This brings us to their 5th studio release of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I was thinking originally of just getting all 4 at the same time, but this one came up for a really good price, and I couldn't say no. So, yeah, I'm trying to get all of the Ozzy Let's try that again. I'm trying to get all of the Ozzy Black Sabbath records, which also means I need to pick up 13, one of my favorites from Black Sabbath. And it really goes to show that, just because a band is on their older side doesn't mean you can write them off. They could still have some of the really good juices in them. And I think that's part of the reason why I get so irked when an older band just kind of half-asses an album. because I'm like, okay, well, Black Sabbath 13 proves that you don't have to half-ass an album. You can put your whole ass in there and it will be fantastic. So, yeah, great record. I think the only other record outside of the 3 that I'm missing from Ozzy at this point, I think I might want to pick up, what is it, Born Again, with Ian Gillan on it, you know, from Deep Purple. I think it would be a lot of fun to have that record, because I know not a lot of people love it, but I don't know, I think it would be kind of fun. All right, another one to kind of fill out the old vinyl. Here we've got the Harmony Codex itself from Steven Wilson. I didn't pick it up when it first came out, and I'm not 100% sure why. I really enjoyed and ended up liking this record. You know, it's a strange one. It's a strange one in his career. It's kind of him doing half trying to do the whole pop experiment thing and half getting into the roots and doing what he does best. And this is, like I said, it's an oddball record for him, but one that I think has more things that work on it than things that don't. Another one to fill out the old catalog is Lust for Life from Lana Del Rey. I'm trying to collect her entire discography as well. So I'm only now missing her 2 Lockdown records, the albums that she put out in the same year. Blue Banisters and Chemtrails. And I'm also missing her Norman fucking Rockwell, which is the real prize. You know, once I get that one, I'll be very, very happy. But every time I do end up seeing it, it's always like $60 or $70. And I'm like, I'm not spending that much money on a single record. So I'm hoping that I can find it one of these days for a price that isn't lucrative. But for now, I got Lust for Life, which is one of my favorites from her. Coming into the final 4, I'm going to rapid fire these because I can see that this thing is getting quite long, and I kind of knew it would be. So I'm just going to rapid fire. These are the re-releases, the 2024 to 2025 new releases of these records. I hadn't gotten any of the Genesis re-release records because I've got all the original pressings, and I was like, why would I get a new release when I already have the originals? But man, hearing that in the new mix, in the new sound on the thicker wax with a much better production style on it, really does make the world of difference. You know, it really does sound that much better. So I got Nursery Crime. I got my favorite album of all time, Selling England by the Pound. I got Trick of the Tail. And to finish it all off, we got Wind and Wuthering. If I can find the other ones that I'm missing, which would be Trespass, Foxtrot, and Then There Were Three, I would be extremely happy. And for those of you paying attention, the main reason why I'm not getting Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is I'm getting the deluxe super ultra special edition that has the vinyl and it has all the CDs in it. So I won't need to pick up another version of that on record or on vinyl. So that's the whole kit and caboodle, friends. Those are all the records that I've picked up. So, as I've mentioned at the very beginning, my no-buy failed spectacularly. I think I need to just take a breather and not buy any records for at least a little bit of time. Hopefully, I can save up a little bit more because part-time retail does not pay the bills like a full-time remote office job did. So, yeah, but those are all my records. What records have you picked up lately? Which were some of the records in my collection that you thought were surprising, that you really liked, that you want to comment on? Let me know all about that by commenting down below. That's what it's for. I'd love to know some of the records that you picked up. I want to know some of the records that you're looking forward to coming into the summer, now that we're getting into the summer months. Let me know all about that by commenting down below. And I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys for today. This was a fun one. I hope you guys had fun with this. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. Look out very soon for some new reviews. I'm going to give my voice a little bit of a rest because I've been sick for the past week. So need to take this at a time and, slowly get myself back. But for now, I'm going to let you guys go and look out for those new releases. Look out for those new videos that I've got going on. I think I'm really excited for those. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.